Well, folks, we're closing in on the April 1st election, and of course, voting underway with early voting. And the Litchfield mayor's race is a three-way contest, and right now we're talking to one of the candidates, Alderman Jacob Fleming. And Jacob, thanks for stopping by. Actually, I'm the one who stopped by because we're here at one of your offices. First up, what inspired you to run for mayor and make the jump here after a couple of years on the horseshoe, as I like to say, at City Council?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Sean. I just want to say, I feel like it was just yesterday when you and I were having this conversation when I had my three-way race for Alderman, and that was the first three-way race in a long time. And the reason I ultimately ran was for change. I feel like I had some ideas, and I wanted the people of Litchfield to feel empowered. At the time I came in, I feel like some felt like disenfranchised, and since I've come into office, if you look online, city council meetings have started to be recorded for the public to view. I like to do a summary with my good friend Joshua Hughes, who also got elected a couple years with me, summarizing the council packet. We've done referendums about important issues for Litchfield so the people could vote. One of those was those UTV referendum a couple years ago. So yeah, it was really just about bringing power back to the people and listening, because at the end of the day, that's who we represent, Sean. So,
and in that vein, I know you certainly got involved in social media and kind of a different outreach, because let's face it, unless if you're directly affected by something, the vast majority of residents aren't going to turn up at Corwin Hall.
Mm-hmm. The thing I love about social media is everybody says it's derogatory, and it is to an extent. A lot of people like to complain, but the biggest thing is to let people know you're listening to those complaints. Problems can't always be solved tomorrow. I think there was a problem with communication with the city. I think they just need to know, hey, what's wrong? When are my streets going to be fixed? Well, it's on the schedule. It'll be there in 2 years due to budgetary. Oh, okay, now I know. Instead of just our streets aren't fixed, now they know. The key, it's an easy way to communicate, and that's what I think has made a big difference. People know they can reach out and get a response, usually within a couple hours, and that's what social media is really good at. It divides people, but it also brings them together, too.
Together, Litchfield can, and an endeavor that you've gotten involved in here in recent months, and how has that helped you on the city council side?
One big thing, Together Litchfield can, success in all communities starts with community organizations. If you go back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, there was all these groups that worked together for Litchfield. And people didn't view the government as the end-all, be-all. It was, let's work together for our community. And now I feel like the narrative has somewhat changed. People look at it like, well, the government should do this for me. And I'm a big believer in get the government out of the way and put the power back in the people. So Together Litchfield Can, 2 years ago, was an idea. We talked about the debate stage when we were running. Alderman Josh Hughes brought it up, and we brought a group of people together. There's 100 citizens. They talked about issues with Litchfield. We formed 5 committees, and we meet every month on the 4th Wednesday at the library, starting at 5:30 if anyone wants to come. And we talk about the issues. And one big thing that Together Litchfield can help with almost right off the bat is we talk about tax increment funding, or TIF funding. They really played an instrumental part in getting us to utilize our funds downtown across numerous buildings. And also one other thing they did is they just got people talking about our youth, about our parks and rec, our beautification, our businesses, you name it. We've been talking about it. And when you get people in a room, good things happen. And Together Litchfield Can is one of those new groups. And another one that I'm not involved with, but has done a good job, is Litchfield Community Partners. They help with parades, getting people together for festival and events. And on the other end, one thing a lot of people have talked about, Sean, is homelessness and drug addiction. And it's something we can't just hide from. John Magnuson, the Next Network, has done a great job of letting people know, we're here, we can help. He's got a great network of people that have fought through addiction and gone to the other side. And I think that all these community organizations are a key to our future success. It's not the government, it's the organizations.
Well, the community involvement certainly has intensified at times. The sports park debate was certainly an interesting time, where every seat was at a premium in that stretch. What have you learned from that period? And just what have we learned and gained from that experience?
So the sports park, I think the sports park all boiled down to fiscal responsibility. And one of my big things that I'm running on is the city cannot be a developer, take on the risk and compete with private enterprise. The city 100% built the Eagle Ridge subdivision out by the lake. The city 100% built the West Side development on the other side of the highway. I hope that works out, but both those projects are going to cost us millions of dollars, and the city took on all that risk. The soccer park was going to be the exact same way. And in my talking, I'm hoping in the next few years, I mean, who doesn't want a brand new soccer park for our youth, right? But the key is talking to all of our other community groups, the Park District being number one, they deal with this all the time, and maybe using our existing infrastructure. If you go to the south side of town there, we have a wonderful community center, soccer parks, and additional space to expand. Why could we not make that space up to par with what we could have been out there and saved a lot of taxpayer money? That was the main debate, and that's kind of what the talk was behind the scenes. And I think a lot of people were upset that there was a lot of people put effort into this, but at the end of the day, I think we made the right decision on that for fiscal reasons, because with anything, you don't want to throw all your eggs in one basket, okay? You want to diversify your risk and look at what you already have. So, but I was happy. You know, I grew some gray hairs. There's a lot of passionate people during that time, Sean, but I was happy people showed up and voiced their opinions, and we had some constructive talk during that time.
Well, I'll tell you, gray hairs start coming faster and faster and faster. But the discussion too, I mean, Corvette Drive and I'd have to think with all of the trends, the city dodged a bullet that didn't become a retail outlet mall site. That concept has kind of withered and died. Just visit Tuscola, one in Springfield, never took off there next to Shields. So it's that's fortunate. What any vision for some of that space out there? Or some of the like you said, you don't want the city to be a developer.
Yeah. So Corvette Drive, one of the things that we talked about in our recent political forum that the chamber put on was kind of like, what's more important to you, the West Side developing or downtown? And I know this might be a political answer, but it's both. And my big thing is using tax increment funding or for development in those areas, okay? And that tax increment funding was created 20 years ago by some forward-thinking individuals with the intention of fixing up blighted areas of Litchfield. So the West Side has gotten less TIF money simply because of the fact that it's newer, all right? I want to continue using our TIF funds for the blighted areas of Litchfield. Downtown, there's 6 or 7 projects right now. Let's keep doing that. On the West Side, there is a strip mall out there that is a little older. It's right next to Walmart. I think we're all familiar with it. They applied for some TIF funds recently, and hopefully we're going to get a large vendor into that area. So nuts and bolts, Sean, it comes down to incentivizing the private sector to invest in Litchfield. And TIF funds overall with the budget, Sean, it's less than 3%. So we're not talking about a lot of money. And our TIF, we're blessed. It funds at about TIF 1, our largest TIF district, about $900,000 to $1 million a year, refunds itself, and it grows as we invest in businesses and tax money goes up. And one thing about TIF, everyone gets afraid. It starts with the word tax. Tax increment funding. Well, it's not. It's existing. The taxes are already there. All we do is put a pause on the tax, and as the value of that business grows, those funds in the in between go into the fund. So we're not adding any additional tax. It's kind of like a pause, and once it expires, it goes back to being where it was, and it's split between the school district, the park district, all the other normal local taxing bodies, if that makes sense.
Well, infrastructure certainly is a great challenge of the age. It seems like every sewer system out there is 100 years old or more anywhere you go, city, rural, whatever. Not sexy. People can't see it. State standards have ramped up, and I know a lot of towns here are just, trying to put the picture together. I know over in Hillsborough, Nokomis, they've been really under the old watchful eye of the state. So, just your thoughts on what we have to do long term with infrastructure. And I know you raised the issue, the unpleasant memories of the flooding.
Yeah, we recently had some flash flooding here in Litchfield, and we saw how antiquated our sewer system was. And it all starts with separating your water systems. And one thing the city of Litchfield does now, like a lot of municipalities, is with our budgeting, we go out 10 years, which you think is a long time. But when you're talking about digging underground and replacing infrastructure like the sewer, we're talking millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. So what we need to do is a little over a longer period of time. I look at it like a 30-year mortgage. A lot of us have a 30-year mortgage. The city needs to have a 30-year mortgage for our water replacement. So every time we pick up a road, we should help separate the sewer, update the lines, and move forward and have it budgeted, because we're not going to be able to do this overnight. So my general philosophy with the sewer and my plan would start with, let's do an intensive study. I want to get a committee of people together from Litchfield to help with that study, and then take that data, move forward and address the issue. Make a 30-year, maybe even a 40-year plan, because that's what it's going to take. A couple generations ago, all of our sewers, 80 plus years old, they made an investment in our community, and I think we're at that point where we need to invest for our children's future, because these rainstorms, it's been crazy how much rain we've been getting in a short amount of time here recently.
I know you've taken a great interest in housing for the middle class, and just your thoughts on some of the developments there.
Yeah. So, with housing, we recently, just in the last month or two, passed a residential subdivision TIF. And basically what that is, we're incentivizing private contractors. The city shouldn't be a developer, private contractors to invest in Litchfield. And how do we do that? We pay for the infrastructure, the curbs, the hookups, all right, the sidewalks, the things they need for the subdivision. And then that private investor takes on all the risk of the project. The last time we had housing in Litchfield built by a private developer was the early 2000s. And I joked with you, Sean, earlier, we talked a little bit about this. I was in high school. That's crazy to me. Housing is essential. We have low inventory. Ask any realtor in the area. I work in the real estate business. We don't have enough housing, especially middle-class housing. And this subdivision, when we talked about it, we emphasized that this has to be middle-class housing. And the developer promised us that he was shooting for, now if you build a new house, this sounds expensive, but $300,000 is the low end of building a new house. So that's kind of the price point he's shooting for. And I'm hoping a couple teachers or a normal income family can go buy that, live, and they'll open up another house that they live in and move up, and that house will be open, and maybe a first-time home buyer, a retired person could buy that house, and the natural cycle continues. But right now, there is no middle-class housing, and having a subdivision like that will make a huge impact in our community.
I know folks talk about the younger generations getting involved. I don't care if it's community events, government, going around the fish fries, seeing some of the folks work the fish fries, and I don't see anybody under 60. So what kind of response have you gotten from your generation, and and maybe their growth and interest in what goes on at City Hall compared to, let's say, 4 years ago or more?
Yeah, so this is a great question. So one thing with me, Sean, is I'm 38 years old, so I'm solid midlife, right? So when I grew up, I didn't have a smartphone my entire life, so I knew what it was like, as my kids say, in the dark ages, okay? But I can relate to a 55 or 60-year-old, and I can also relate to that 20 or 25-year-old. And I think when it comes to nuts and bolts, they're way more similar than you think. It's just the way they communicate is different. The older you get, typically, they're more face-to-face. They're phone talkers, which I love. The younger you get, they just, for some reason, they just want to send you a message and make it quick. But in terms of volunteerism, if you look at this most recent election, if you looked up at the stage, look at the age of the candidates. There were candidates that were younger than me. I'm solid midlife, okay? There were some 20-something-year-olds. There were some 30-something-years-olds. There was your normal 50, 60-year-olds. You have open communication and people that want to be involved in government. And I just love seeing that. I think Litchfield, that is what's going to get Litchfield in the right place, opening lines of communication and making groups of people communicate with each other and realize, hey, we're on the same team. We're not against each other. There's so much of that in today's modern society. And I'm seeing more and more people work together. And like you said, we talked about Together Litchfield Can. It's about community organizations and listening and learning from each other. And I think we're doing that.
What separates you, believe, from your opponents in this race?
I think both my opponents' hearts are in the right place. I think they've been here a long time. I think when you think about it, just what we just talked about, Sean, is just in terms of all learning from everyone. Both my opponents have been in government for about 10 plus years, and there's nothing against that. I just think I have a different perspective than them because I've only been in government for 2 years, but in those 2 years I've learned so much and talked to so many people, and just using social media, talking to your base, I feel like that's just the main difference. But at the end of the day, my opponents are both good people. I'm glad they're running. I'm glad the people have choices. Go out there, research us. At the end of the day, I'll shake their hand if they win, and I'll still be an alderman working with them for a couple of years. So I don't really think there's much that separates us. I think we're all on the same page. It's just our life experiences are different.
And what goals do you have in mind if come April 1st, you top Mr. Garrell and top Mr. Hollow? Priorities or just any visions of what you'd like to achieve if elected mayor?
Like I told you, I'm going to keep, one thing I've said several times in interviews, the government should not be a developer. So I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to look at our ordinances. When it comes to my political views, I consider myself a fiscal conservative. So let's try and make government smaller. Let's look through all of our ordinances and kind of take away some of the older ones to make things easier for free enterprise. That's going to be a big, important thing for me. Obviously, infrastructure. I talked to you. We have some big things we need to do with sewer, water, our roads. So let's make a 30-year plan, not a 10-year plan, and move forward constructively with the data we have. And one thing that we didn't talk about I want to end on is over these last 2 years, I've worked really hard. It was pretty normal for the city to operate a budget that was 6 months behind with data. We hired a financial director. Our books are up to about a month behind. We're going to be on par here soon. And guess what? When you have good data, you can make good decisions. So we can actually look at where we are at the present day and then make a decision. That's going to be the most important thing. And it's not about my ideas. Well, like I told you, collaboration and transparency is going to be at the center of what I do. And hopefully we can move forward, keep sharing info. And my campaign slogan, Sean, I got to say it, is the future is bright. I truly believe that. Litchfield's future is bright. And if you want to learn more about me, you can go to my website. It's FlemingForMayor.com. It's Fleming with one M. A lot of people spell it with two M's. It's FlemingForMayor.com. And I appreciate you taking the time to interview all the candidates. Luckily, we have lots of candidates, so you have a lot of interviews to do.
A little kid. Yeah, it's going to be a race to the finish. Well, Alderman Jacob Fleming, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Sean.